Hello again, everybody. I wanted to go back into population, depopulation topics, but this time a different thing. So, last few videos we looked at the idea of cities and then them being a certain portion of the population and rural plausible deniability. But in that we assume the numbers in the cities are actually what they tell us for the most part. So in this one, I wanted to see, like, is there a way we can take the alleged number of a city and see if they're lying about that? Because that would even further reduce the number that we allegedly have on this planet. And so once again, diminishing returns, we're gonna look at the largest city allegedly in the entire world, and it probably is, it's just they're all adjusted by a coefficient. But that would be Tokyo in Japan, in case your IQ is that of a Somalian. And so, without further ado, the alleged population of Tokyo, they tell us, is 37 million people, give or take a few 100,000, right? And then, so the way that you could or should attack this is, you gotta get really creatively with this. But you can look at things like products, goods, services, or activities and events that occur in a certain time frame. And that time frame probably would be best on an annual basis, right? And it's already got this right here, right? And so I will boast and say I did actually come up with one or two of these on my own, and then I used AI. So you can use AI to enhance creativity, or can you use it to, be passive in engaging in slop kind of stuff. And we're gonna go with the former here. So first one, I said cars sold in the year 2025. And what we're told is 400,000 vehicles were purchased in Tokyo in the year of 2025. And then what I did here was there's that 6 million number. It just keeps popping up everywhere. We multiply that by 15 because the average lifespan of a car, again, for statistics, we have to go with what we were told to a certain extent, is around 15 years. So you take 400,000, you multiply it by 15, you get 6 million, okay? And then the last part of that equation would be that, what is the, the ownership in Tokyo for every person that's in Tokyo? And you come up with about 1 in 3, or 33, 34%, something like that, okay? And you get 18 million. A couple things you could go on and on about, well, it's poor people, there's a lot of, the bottom 50-70% are really struggling, and that's true, but there's also a lot of rich people there. There's a lot of wealth there. Think of, like, there are some people that are weird and they like to collect 100 sports cars. Well, you don't think there's a few billionaires, multimillionaires, guys that go in debt to have 3 cars in a garage somewhere? And even outside the city, there are places that have garages and all that, right? So I think, these numbers they're good enough. And we're doing 5 of these too, by the way, so you can always, like, make some sort of an excuse for one, but it's about the aggregate of all 5, okay? So that's where we're at. Based on the amount of cars sold, the lifespan of a car, and the percentage ownership rate, the population should be around 18 million, okay? Deaths in 2025, 137,000, okay? And in this one, I just straight up used AI, and I said based on um, if a certain population has this 137,000 people that died, what would that indicate the probability of the overall population? On an annual basis, if 137,000 people die, what would the probability of the population size be? And it gave me a number of between 15 to 18 million. And so that would be about, and then I took an average of there, I think I went in the middle of that for this. So I just said, I went on the little higher end, I said 17 million, okay? And so what did that be? So that number is less than 1%. And I think that's pretty accurate. You might even say, we know Japan is an aging population. However, they might be the most first world country, on that scale of a size at least, other than like some of those very small ones like Singapore or something like that. So I don't think that is unfair at all. Maybe even on the low end, um, to say that that's indicative of a country that has about 17 million people in that range. So I picked that number and I went a little bit on the higher end. I could have gone like 16 and a half. So, yeah, that's less than 1% of a population dying every year. That's normal. If it was even 2%, that wouldn't be crazy. So we're actually lowballing it, in my opinion here. All right, so births in 2025. 65,000. Now this is where we have, it's not even a conspiracy, it's mainstream admitted that the fertility rate across the world, and especially in places like Korea and Japan, they might be leading the charge, right? So this one isn't quite as the gotcha, it's like interlocking conspiracies or whatever you call it. So 65,000, and there you go. So you're showing that every year, twice as many people die than are born, and I buy that in Japan. It's both an agenda and an admitted, not even conspiracy. It's a fact of the matter at this point, right? And so I asked AI, what would the probable population be if there are 65,000 births every year? How large would the overall population more than likely be? And AI said between 4 and 14 million. And so the middle of that would be 9 million. As a matter of fact, I'm going to go a little bit higher than that and go with 10 million. Because I know the situation in Japan. Okay. Alrighty. And then the next thing I looked at was real estate sales. So this would have been, and residences, not necessarily like anything related to commercial. And the number that came up, and this would be both new and existing home and apartment. Because it's a city, so I don't want to like leave out anything. The data is to capture population related products and services for an entire year. And so that number was around 100,000. And I did the same thing. I just used AI and I said, what would the likelihood of a population be if the amount of real estate sales and purchases, whether you sell or purchase, it's the same thing. So there would be 100,000 purchases or 100,000 sales between two parties, right? And I said, what would the likelihood of the population be if there's 100,000 apartment and or home, new and existing sales? And AI said 14 million. And so that would be one in it's less than 1%, cause, yeah, 10 million would be 1%. And so we're talking about what, 0.67%, and I think that's pretty reasonable. And again, you know, is there homeless? I don't think Tokyo is a very big homeless situation, and that and also the idea that you know, again, the bottom 50% are probably poor as shit. There, I get it, working, bunch of people crammed in places, but then you have the people that own multiple properties, right? So I still think that's actually pretty conservative. Like if it was 10 million, I believe that. So 14 million, I think, is pretty good. And the last one was 2.5, or I'll say how many tax returns filed in 2025. 2.5 million. Okay. So I have a note here because they say that the way it works in Tokyo, or maybe it's all of Japan, I should say, is that there's no need for a tax return if you just work a job. And so that's like a little bit of an excuse for this one, but I went ahead and multiplied it anyways by that, and you get 14 million if you multiply that out. The other thing is that, okay, let's say, I think this would have been more applicable until the year, and I know Japan and the United States are different beasts, this is from the United States perspective, but even people that have a job, you know, this has been the era of side gigs and multiple businesses, and like, what do people do with their money? They put it in the bank, but you know, more and more now, and for years they're in the stock market. Do they go gambling? Do they do a real estate purchase or sale? Do they whatever, it's some sort of investment, any sort of investment? Do they have a side gig? Do they have a, you know, they've been putting in the hours at a job for 10 years, and they're starting that small business? Is the wife doing some sort of a YouTube channel and she's monetizing it, right? So yeah, maybe the traditional job there doesn't require a tax return, but to assume that, oh, just because there's been, you know, the typical, if all you do is work a job, like normal job, one job, that you don't have a tax return, that doesn't quite make up for the alleged population. But again, I just used AI to ask what would the indicative population be, assuming you had 2.5 million tax returns, and again, it came with 14 million. Okay, so we go ahead and average those out, and you get 14.5 million. It's 14.6. And I went ahead and just, you know, whatever, I just rounded that up too, because I know the collapsing fertility rate one. I probably should have just gone to the end of it. I would have done the same thing if I just put 14 million there. But anyways, again, you can come up with a couple excuses, like this one, maybe you should have gone a little higher, or this one a little higher, right? But all five of them, if you kind of do an estimate in the middle range, you get this number. It's going to say 15 million, okay? And what does that equate to on an overall basis? 40%. Which is actually, what do we come up with those countries before? Right around that 42% number. Except this is like another level to it, right? So if we're being told the overall population might actually be 40% of the overall, but then even using that data, there's like another layer to it, and it's like a second derivative of 40%. I don't think it necessarily is like a full-on 40%, but a lot of these cities are probably way smaller than they are. So let's just quick multiply that out. Equals 37 million times, let's see if actually works like this here. That's not right. I can just do that in my head practically. It's 18 times 2 is 36, but it's less than 18 million. Oh, I guess we basically did it right there. Right, yeah, so. More than likely it is right around that 15 million mark. Yeah, let me know if, I don't wanna say flaws in my thing, cause there's data I pulled and I just went through my logic and we did 5 of them, right? So upper or lower, it should balance out and we're getting these lower numbers, guys, okay? So let me know if you enjoyed and if there's any other, what I'm more interested in, is there any more like these or ideas you can come up with that would give us more clues? But I think we just found 5 good ones, so thanks for listening.